Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 315 of the All Dolphins podcast, where today I'm once again joined by the one and only, the world famous Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel South Florida Sun-Sentinel and then .com, where you will find his work. How'd you like that world famous, Perk?
Hey, I like it, baby. You know what? That's what I'm all about, baby. You improvise. Life is not a straight line, straight up, right? You're gonna fall back. You improvise. You make the best of it. That's what you did. That's why you're a professional.
Oh, I am? Okay, cool. I figured I wouldn't go with like good friend. I've gone with good friend Perk, the esteemed Perk, and all that. So I figured
just go with everybody hates Chris. That's the easy one.
Jesus. No, nobody hates. Everybody loves Perk. Everybody likes Perk. Of all the media members, I would venture to say you are probably the most universally liked of the group. And I don't say that just because you're
because I'm here.
Exactly. Although that would be reason enough. But no, I say that in all candor. If you think of the guys who cover the beat every single day, yeah, that's your guy right there.
Don't believe it, but let's do this.
Anyway, let's do this. Enough with the fluffiness. Today we're going to be discussing the skill position players, which was, as we mentioned previously, about as good a group as you'll get in the NFL, if not the best. First, however, we are going to do the obligatory history lesson, and so the fun one today, episode 315. Therefore, we're going to be talking about 2015. This was a year where Joe Philbin was back as Dolphin head coach, to the surprise of many, particularly those on the beat, after what had been three seasons of 2012, 13, 14. In the draft, the Dolphins had the 14th overall pick selected wide receiver Devontae Parker from Louisville, which was a need pick. Also one interesting because this was a guy who had severe foot issues at Louisville. And I know my thought at the time was like, you're going to take a wide receiver who's got like, what is it? He had a screw inserted in his foot. Deal with an issue. And it's like, seems less than ideal. And perhaps coincidentally or not, this is a guy who wound up having one or two injury problem in his Dolphin career, or 17 or 18 or 38 or 39. Let's start this. Your take when do you recall your reaction when the Dolphins took Devontae Parker?
Not a strong. I didn't feel strongly either way. They needed a wide receiver. Devontae was there, but he wasn't like the third receiver picked or something. Yeah, something like he was kind of down the line. That was actually a productive draft for the Dolphins, as I recall, right? Like Jamil Douglas and Tony Lippett, like in the seventh, the last pick.
Was that the year that? Let me double check.
Jay Ajayi.
That was the year they had
Bobby McCain.
They had 4 5th-round picks.
Yes.
In that year.
McCain, Ajayi were two of them. Yeah. It was a productive draft, as I recall.
Well,
if I have those names, well, they helped them get to the playoffs in 26. They were instrumental players in the playoff appearance in the following year.
Yeah, the 2nd-round pick was Jordan Phillips.
That's it.
And then
that's it.
The 4 5th-round picks were Bobby McCain, Jay Ajayi, Tony Lippett, and then this is a great trivia question: who was the 4th, because he didn't make an impact? That was Cedric Thompson, who was a DB from Minnesota.
Yeah.
But then we get to the season. The Dolphins get off to a bad start. They lose against the Jets in London.
Yeah.
And then the coaching change is made, which, of course, made everybody think and wonder, why didn't you do that at the end of last season? But be that as it may, Dolphins are 1-3. They made the change. They appointed Dan Campbell, who had been the tight ends coach, as interim head coach. And I don't know about you, that struck me as a little bit of a surprise. There were more experienced coaches on the staff. But we saw very quickly that whatever Dan Campbell was lacking in experience, he more than made up with in leadership ability and what's the word I'm looking for? Gusto, fervor, enthusiasm. I mean, this was an intense dude, to put it very, very, very mildly. And that was very evident from the first practice where we see the Oklahoma drill. And then the Dolphins go out their first game with Campbell as interim head coach. It's at Tennessee, and they just absolutely plastered the Titans 38-10. come back home for the first home game under Dan Campbell, and they obliterated the Texans. It was 41-0 in the first half. That was the wildest first half. We thought, you guys thought the 70-20 game against Denver last year was crazy. Go check out the highlights or even the game footage of that first half against Houston in 2015. It was 41-0 at the half. You're going to look in the media guide or wherever, and the final score was 44-26. Yeah, wasn't anywhere near that close. And the Dolphins got competitive. They got to within a game of 500 at one point. They played Dallas really tough on Thanksgiving. A good Dallas team came up short, fizzled a bit down the stretch, wound up 6-10, and then made the switch after the season in hiring a permanent head coach. Dan Campbell was one of the candidates. Dolphins instead wound up going with Adam Gase. Much of Dan Campbell's chagrin and disappointment, he wound up spending some time with the Saints under the tutelage of Sean Payton before taking over with the Lions. Anything you'd care to add, Mr. Perkins?
Well, it was a team that had a decent amount of talent on it, but the coaching staff might have been better, right? When you have Dan Campbell, Zach Taylor, who have both become successful head coaches, Lou Anarumo, it was a pretty good staff. The front office, I think, the Tannenbaum, Hickey, Donna Ponte might have been instrumental in that front office also. That to me is where it went sideways more so even than coaching and players, because I believe that was kind of that infighting coaching front office where they're all trying to get Steve Ross's attention and the communication was not ideal. We'll just leave it at that, right? That's fair to say.
It's a very polite way of saying it. Yeah.
very, very I'm trying to be polite here. Right. It was a jacked up situation.
Yeah, they were the Dolphins were behind the 8 ball when Campbell took over, and it looked like for a while, maybe they can make a run at something, and eventually it went south a little bit.
But the energy that Dan Campbell brought, wow, that man Campbell, he was like he was an NFL sensation for about a month, man. He had those practices were energetic, and as you say, those first 2 games, this whole area, it was infectious. And his press conferences, the intensity, and he's all muscled up. And I was shocked. The tight ends coach, Dan Campbell, he's the interim. Are you kidding me? They should have kept him around.
Yeah, I was disappointed when he didn't get the job, and this is nothing against Adam Gase, who also was very cool to deal with.
Correct.
And I had the feeling, I know when the Lions hired Dan Campbell, somebody from Detroit, buddy reached out to me okay, I'm like, that guy's he's gonna work, he's gonna be great. The X's and O's were a little bit shaky, the game management part of it, that was the issue. And early on in his tenure with the Lions, we saw some of it. Mm-hmm. But those guys are gonna run through a wall for him. This is players will never go through the motion. That was part of the issue with Joe Philbin, is that getting the players to play for him. That will never, ever be an issue with Dan Campbell. So
no.
Okay. Dan Campbell was a tight end, and we segue into the skill position players.
Yeah.
Which includes tight ends, running backs, and wide receivers, and what the Dolphins have. And it's a whole lot of high-end talent, a whole lot of depth. However, I'm going to start with interesting. So ESPN is doing ranking of players by positions. They've done 2 positions so far, and they've done the running backs. Mm-hmm. And this is done through conversations off the record with coaches and execs. And by the way, for anybody who's gonna be like, well, why don't they put their names on it? You really think a guy's going to talk crap about another player on another team? No, it can't be done. So it's a case of whether the public wants the information. It's going to be done anonymously. Doesn't mean it's any less valid. So massively stood out to me. There were 10 running backs listed, 7 honorable mentions. Mm-hmm. Raheem Mostert's nowhere to be found. Neither is Devon Achane. Devon Achane's only been in the league 1 year, but nowhere to be found. You were talking about 17 players. He was in the others receiving votes.
Yes.
That is far down the line.
Yep, that he was among, I think there was a total of 25 mentioned when you considered the others receiving votes, and he was one of those, the 8 who received a voter or whatever, the others receiving votes. I can't disagree with that. Raheem is a productive back. He's up there in age. He's not the main guy now that Achane is there, since, I guess since his injury problems in 22, and then Jeff Wilson comes on and kind of shares the load late in that season. And then last year, Achane comes on, and then even though Raheem made the Pro Bowl last year, and then this year you draft Jalen Wright. So I think you kind of see the team planning for a reduction in his role every year, even though he did go to the Pro Bowl and had the franchise rushing record, or a franchise rushing touchdown record. There we go. But, Poop, here's the thing about Mostert. At 17 games, he's a 1,000-yard rusher, but that's 67 yards a game rushing, which is pretty much what he had. I think what he rushed for 1,019 or whatever, 1,011, whatever it was. But yeah, he averaged 67 yards per game. So based on production and things, and just fear factor, he's a respected running back, but not a feared running back.
I don't disagree with you entirely, because I have said, like, for example, the 18 rushing touchdowns. I mean, yes, he did it, but there's a flukiness to it, and it's not like, for example, it was a Jamal Williams from the Lions 2 years ago where you can explain his touchdowns because anytime the ball was on the 1 yard line, the Lions gave him the ball, and he's had the physicality to bulldoze over the line. With Raheem Mostert, it was like inside the 5 yard line or wherever it was mostly. And then a lot of times, and then he so he has a nose for the end zone. But this notion he's going to rush for 18 touchdowns or come close to that again, don't know if I'd go there. But I think where maybe there's a little bit of disrespect there is, I remember the run against New England in week 2, where he just had a gap and he just had the speed to go through it, and then boom, he's in the end zone. So I don't know. Again, I don't know about 17. And this is where, again, because this may apply to other positions that shall remain nameless at this particular time, this is where the scheme and everything else that's on offense perhaps raises a player to a level that may be higher than what the actual truth is. Not to mention any other position whatsoever. I wouldn't do that.
That's right. No, especially not quarterback. No, we wouldn't do that. No. We wouldn't do that. Look, Poop, I like how the Dolphins have stacked the talent at running back, right? We've mentioned Raheem and Achane and Jalen Wright, the fourth round pick from Tennessee. You've also got Chris Brooks. I hope he sticks around as a power back. I would have to say the outlook is very cloudy and very doubtful. You've got Salvon Ahmed. When you talk about the speed, and this is possibly this is possibly the fastest team in the history of the NFL. Ahmed fits that speed profile, but from a versatility standpoint, I would hope they get a power back and use him.
I agree. And then if I look at the roster, Chris Brooks is the closest thing they have to it.
Yep.
Maybe Jeff Wilson Jr.
I consider Jeff Wilson more of a slasher than a power back. I
agree, but
yeah, but he runs with force. But yeah, he's not your Derrick Henry type power back. Well, nobody's Derrick Henry, but you know what I'm saying. I know I didn't raise the bar too high.
Over here. How about Christian Okoye? Dolphins don't have a Christian Okoye on the roster. I'm about to blast from the past here. No, but here's the thing is, like, the running game last year led the NFL in average per carry.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yep.
And I'm going to go back to it again. On 3rd and 1 running plays, 5 for 11. Not good enough. Now, some of that obviously is the blocking up front. But the Dolphins also do not have, as you mentioned, a hammer back who's going to get the ball and put his head down. And what have they done in the past? To the point they've used Durham Smythe as had a carry on 3rd and 1.
Right.
They tried Alec Ingold one time last year. Actually, on 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1, if you recall the circumstances, it was against Denver, and they were in their own end at a time when I think the score was 21-10, and they were at their 34-yard line. And I'm thinking, what the hell are you doing? Going for it on 4th and 1. After Ingold got stuffed on 3rd and 1, gave him the ball again on 4th and 1, got stuffed again. And then, fortunately for the Dolphins, that didn't cost them any points. Denver got backed up, wound up having the punt. Dolphins scored, game over. but it was 21-10. And if Denver takes advantage of that kind of strange decision, who knows where that game went. Well, chances are it's still a blowout, but maybe there's some sweat dripped by the Dolphins during that game. But the bottom line is that whoever provides it, the Dolphins need to be better in 3rd-and-1 situations when they're going to run the ball. They're not going to be like Philly, where it's practically an automatic, where it's a tush push and it's a first down. And Baltimore with Derrick Henry now, I'm going to guess their percentage of conversion on 3rd-and-1 running play is going to be pretty good.
Yep.
Got to be better than 5 for 11, though. I mean, and who on the roster is there? I mean, because they're keeping Mostert, they're keeping HN, they're keeping Jalen Wright. They didn't trade a 3rd-round pick next year for him not to make the team.
Correct.
So that's 3. Alec Ingold's going to make the team. However you want to classify him. If you want to classify him more with the tight end room, that's fine. But exactly how many halfbacks you're going to take? You're going to keep. It's not going to be more than 4. So this is why I went like this. Wave bye-bye to Savon Ahmed. I see where he makes a team. Is it Chris Brooks or Jeff Wilson? Chris Brooks has the advantage of contributing on special teams. Jeff Wilson is more of the veteran, and he's got the familiarity with Mike McDaniel. But who's your hammer when it needs to get done in a short yardage situation?
Yep. Yeah, that's a big question for this team. And look, I'll say this just to kind of make an all-encompassing statement about the skill position players. Yeah, this might be the best group in the NFL. It might be. There is a lot of just raw talent among these skill position players, and we know who's at receiver with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and OBJ, and we'll even throw Braxton Berrios in there. And look, your tight ends. Look, Durham Smythe is a productive player. He's not going to a Pro Bowl, but he. 36 receptions last year, a career best, whatever it was. So, and you add Jonnu Smith, Jody Fortson, we'll see what he can do. But with Durham and Jonnu, I think you've got a nice 1-2 tight end punch everywhere with the skill positions, right, Poop? You've got a pretty good 1-2 punch on this team. It's a very deep, fast skill position group, maybe the best in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely up there. And again, you got guys who can hurt you everywhere. And if you combine just the running backs and the wide receivers, find me a faster group ever.
Right, correct. I agree.
Ridiculous. And this is, but having said that, there is some depth, but Tyreek's the guy who makes, you and I both agree on this, he's a guy who makes a Dolphin offense special. Above and beyond anything else.
Yep. And really, Poop, one of my big things is, what do you have to win a game after Tyreek? We saw what happened in Tennessee when he gets the half hip drop tackle, half horse collar, how it slows him down. And I know that Jalen Waddle was also slowed at the same time late in the season. So that's a very unfortunate double that I'm not sure many teams could recover from. But if Tyreek is slowed, like Jalen Waddle is not going to win you a game, and that's fine. There's probably not a number 2 receiver in the NFL that will win you a game. There's half the ones couldn't win you a game. Tyreek can win you a game. But if Tyreek is slowed, what does your offense do now? Do you have partially a tight end that you can rely on, partially a slot receiver that you can rely on to pick up that slack? Do you have, diversity in your run game? What else can this team do? And that's what I want to see from the skill position guys. And this might be a Mike McDaniel thing as far as the play calling and ball distribution. But again, I've got to see the 2 in the 1-2 offensive punch. We know Tyreek is the one. I want to see a number 2, and you've got all this skill, Poop. It might be more of a Mike McDaniel thing, but we need these guys to get to that, take the offense to the next level.
This is where I want to play devil's advocate, though.
Okay.
The Jets game needs to be mentioned.
Yes, definitely.
The second Jets game,
30-0.
Correct. No Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Jalen Waddle had 8-142 in the 60-yard touchdown.
Yep.
And and I'm going to apply also context here because some people who shall remain nameless, it's actually mostly fans, will tell you this is in defense of their quarterback. See that Tua doesn't need Tyreek Hill because the Jets have one of the best pass defenses. And I make the point I want to make is if you're playing a team that's very, very good on defense, but their offense is so dysfunctional as to not be able to win a game by themselves, what happens? The defense starts taking chances because they have no other shot to win the game than to create something on defense. For example, if you look at the first game against the Jets on Black Friday, this was the game until the Javon Holland pick six. Because why? Because the Jets had a pick six of their own before that to make it 10-6 at the time. And we're looking at going into halftime as a 10-6 score. And it's like, ooh, even though the Jets offense is putrid, they can't protect Tim Boyle, who's Tim Boyle to begin with, no offense. But it was dicey. And only because of what the Jets did on defense. And then the second game against the Jets starts, and they plaster Zach Wilson, get a defensive touchdown or set up a defensive touchdown like that. And immediately it's very apparent to anybody who's ever watched a football game that if the Jets are going to win, it's going to have to be with a defensive touchdown or takeaway or special teams and all that. And if you don't think that affects the way a defense plays, I don't know what to tell you. And that, yes, absolutely helped the production for Jalen Waddle on that day. However, the facts remain, it was 8 for 142 and one touchdown. So, yes, the Dolphins showed that they can win without Tyreek Hill, but how sustainable is that? I'm kind of with you in thinking probably not very.
Yeah, and listen, and Jalen Waddle, I'm glad he got paid. One of the best number 2 receivers in the NFL, but we've got to see something beyond Jalen in the passing game. It could be Odell Beckham Jr. from the slot. It could be Jonnu Smith at tight end. Heck, it could be Devon Achane, right? Or a combination of Achane and Raheem Mostert. But I would like to see look, and their number 3 receiver is not going to have 800 yards. It's not going to be 60 receptions for 800 yards. No. 40 receptions or maybe 500 yards or something credible, something that says, okay, you've got to kind of look out for this guy. And I say 40, Durham Smythe had 36. But something, 45 maybe. Just be a threat. Be somebody who defenses have to respect and who defenses look at and say, all right, we got Tyreek locked down. We can kind of do something with Jalen. But now what are we going to do with OBJ or Jonnu or Durham or, Achane out of the back? That's the type of complications that I want to see this offense create every single week against Kansas City, against Philly, against Buffalo. We've seen them do it against Denver and Carolina and Washington, right? Again, you've got to do it against these top teams. And Poupart, I'm going to throw this to you. How much of this is Mike McDaniel being a young coach and him needing to advance this offense, and how much of it is just the players? I think it might be more Mike McDaniel at this point, and that's not a criticism, but he just needs to grow as a young head coach and play caller, I think.
No, I agree with you. Here's the thing. Here's the catch-22, pun intended, when the Dolphins are throwing the football. Get it? Catch-22.
Yeah, I get you. That's nice.
That the fallback is always Tyreek, but the flip side to that is because he's always open.
Yes.
Like when it gets to crunch time, when it comes to crunch time, that's the guy they look to. How many big moments did he convert? So it's very easy to fall back to the default mode is let's look for Tyreek, but this is where the Dolphins adding more and more options in the passing game. Jonnu Smith, Odell Beckham Jr., maybe an increased role for Devon Achane in the passing game. I think it just gives them even more ways to attack defenses and, again, perhaps get things done against good defenses. Not going to be Philly because they don't play them this year. So
Yeah, well, I was just throwing out. See, I got to be on my toes with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, but obviously I got your point. So, but yeah, but the talent is there. How much without looking at numbers, what kind of impact are you expecting from Odell Beckham Jr.?
I'm thinking that he has to be a threat throughout the year, and fingers crossed, be healthy December, January, and fingers crossed again February. It's kind of that Teron Armstead thing, right? I think for most of their over 30s guys, Poyer, Shaq Barrett, Calais Campbell, Teron Armstead, Raheem Mostert, OBJ, be a credible threat for September, October, November, but really be ready December, January, February, because that's when we need your skill and your experience. So that's what I'm looking for from OBJ. It's hard to put a number on it, but he's got to be a threat. He's got to be somebody that defenses look and go, oh, damn, now they added OBJ, as opposed to, OBJ, he's 31. He's had 3 straight injury interrupted seasons. Like, you're not going to be the OBJ of 5 or 6 years ago. Everybody understands that. But be a credible number 3 punch, not just option, a punch. There we go.
Okay. I'm actually the opinion. I think I have higher expectations of making a clear impact for Jonnu Smith than I do for Odell Beckham Jr.
That's good.
Because I think this is an element of the offense that was completely overlooked last year. And I know Durham Smythe had 35, 36 catches, but the tight ends were not a factor in the red zone and goal-to-go situations. I mean, 0 touchdown catches from the tight ends last year, which is completely crazy. And I think Jonnu Smith there, because of his ability to attack down the seam, the yak ability, you can do different things with him. I think that's a guy. I think that was a low-key great acquisition. Last question I have for you here. Wide receivers, how many are you thinking they keep? And if you were to guess right now, who are those?
Well, we know the top 3: Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, OBJ. Braxton Berrios will be there. I think River Craycraft will be there. He's your best blocking receiver, and at the time, right now, off the top of my head, he's your biggest receiver, right? Although he's not a big receiver by any stretch. He's not a big target, but I think physically,
Ezekama's bigger than him, actually.
Yeah, I don't think Ezekama's going to be around. Okay. I don't. So I would say those 5, and who's number 6? Maybe it says Ezekama, but I think you keep 6, and those 5: Tyreek, Jalen, OBJ, Braxton Berrios, and River Craycraft are on.
You didn't give me your 6.
No, I don't know the 6. I don't. But I don't think Ezekama is going to make it. I would like to see it. It always seems to be something with Ezekama, right? Whether it's the health or people ahead of him, or I just haven't seen him break through. Last year you were hopeful that a guy like Robbie Chosen might break through. I think the final receiver spot would be more somebody like Chosen, a veteran, as opposed to Ezekama, up and coming, unproven guy.
You're forgetting the draft picks.
The Washingtons. I don't. Yeah. I see. I don't.
You don't think either one of them makes the team?
I don't.
Okay.
Don't you want something different at that? The number 6 guy is not going to play much, but I don't know, a bigger target or I just want something different at that spot, and I guess Ezekama would be something different. Craycraft is something different. Berrios is something different. I want to go a little more different. Maybe size would be a bigger thing there.
Here's the thing to me, and I agree. Obviously, the top 3 are no-brainers. I think River Craycraft also makes a team because Mike McDaniel's got.
Yes.
You're going to do it for me there. So that's 4. I have a hard time seeing the Dolphins dumping both of their draft picks. I think Malik Washington's going to make the team. So that would be 5. And then Would that be 5?
No, you didn't make Berrios. You got to put Berrios.
No, there's a reason why I didn't mention Berrios.
Ooh, and special teams too.
Well, here's the thing: he's your returner, but with the new kickoff rules, which are different now. You don't have the big run, the big collisions. So I think there's going to be more of an inkling to put less of a hesitation to put prime player in there. So I'm thinking maybe like a Devon Achane can return kickoffs. Maybe they use Waddle there. Maybe they use Tyreek there.
Raheem. I mean, you know what? This actually raises a very good skill position argument because you can't afford to lose any of those guys from scrimmage.
But remember, Perk, remember the idea of the new kickoff rule, because they're going to start off 10 yards away and not running down the field in the massive collisions. The idea was to make the kickoff return safer. So I think you're going to see more prominent players returning kickoffs because of that factor. And Jalen Wright's another guy who maybe could be used to return kickoffs to give him a role as a rookie. So whereas Braxton Berrios is major value, then it becomes punt return. Of course, by the way, this is where somebody could point out, well, Berrios was an all-pro returner and led the NFL in kickoff return average a few years back with the Jets. True. And he's a very solid, dependable returner. We didn't see a whole lot of explosiveness in that area of his game last year. Correct? Am I wrong?
Correct. You're correct.
So the question now becomes, who can handle the punt returns if you do not keep Braxton Berrios? Because to me, I think Braxton Berrios is maybe on the bubble. Jalen Waddle has punt return experience. I don't know the Dolphins want to put him back there. I think the Dolphins like the dependability of Braxton Berrios, and he was very solid. Didn't have any long returns, but he gave you usually what was there, 10 yards, 11 yards, whatever. So, to me, those Tyreek, Waddle, Beckham are slam dunks. I think I have a hard time seeing the Dolphins dumping the 2 draft picks. So I think Malik Washington makes it, River Cracraft makes it, and then it becomes a free-for-all between Braxton Berrios, Taj Washington, and Eric Ezukama, who, like, before he landed on IR last year, remember they gave him a couple of carries. And he was good doing it. Is that enough to keep him on the team? I don't know. There's something intriguing about the dude. So I don't know.
He was like a low-budget Deebo Samuel in training camp. It's interesting. It's interesting. I want to see Mike McDaniel's role increase with the use of the skilled players, because these guys do their jobs pretty well. And I mentioned on another pod that, look, McDaniel, his first year, they were 31st in rushing attempts. Last year, they were 15th in rushing attempts. So that's an improvement. That's coaching awareness. That's growth from a young coach. I still would like to see other things done as far as distribution. And look, I understand if I'm Mike McDaniel if I'm Tua, you're drawing up a play as McDaniel and you're going, again, why am I going away from Tyreek or Jalen? And if you're Tua, you're back there and you're going, why am I going away from Tyreek and Jalen? But you have to, right? At some point, just so you're not so one-dimensional and so predictable, and just so your whole offense takes advantage of all the skill and all the speed you've accumulated. I really do think that Mike McDaniel plays a huge role when we talk about evaluating the skill position players. We see all the speed, but unleash them and let this thing breathe a little bit more.
Fair enough. I have nothing to add. Therefore, we're going to wrap it up.
Let's do it.
And that's so that will conclude our training camp position outlooks. And the next time we speak, we're going to be talking about some training camp stuff, some actual training camp practice. So, this will be a little bit more than talking about what's going to happen. We'll be talking about what did happen. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe. Thanks, as always, to my good friend, regular guest, Chris Perkins from the South Florida Sun-Sentinel. Read his work. The man does good work, in addition to being an all-around good guy. And on that note, hope you enjoyed. Take care, everyone. Until we meet again.